All right, Dylan. I don't want to pick on you because you so graciously filled in for me this week in Minnesota, writing deadline game stories, covering Ohtani baby news and injuries. It seemed like a very busy week, but I'm on my flight home from Alaska today, and I get texts in three different group chats of people who are there, of you in a chair in the back of the press box, passed out asleep like 10 minutes before the game. Did you get a good pregame nap today in Minnesota?
I did, and I would actually argue that that was an excellent use of time. I did not miss the game. I set an alarm. I should have gone to sleep in the dining room, really, and made the mistake of going upstairs. Press box window was open, so I went to go find somewhere quiet. Because like I am doing the labor of two people. I think this past however many days, I should be getting whatever your salary is because, yeah, it's just I've been awake a lot. Let's just put it that way.
Yes, it was a busy week. We're going to get into all that. Kyle Tucker injury update, Dalton Rushing, and Shohei Ohtani. I saw there was a lot of adventurous stuff there in today's game. And we also have Tony Gwynn Jr. coming on as a special guest this week to talk about the Padres ahead of the Dodgers visit to San Diego this weekend. This is Dodgers Post. All right, he's Dylan Hernandez, California Post baseball columnist, coming to you from his hotel room in Minnesota. I'm Jack Harris, Dodger beat writer, coming to you from my new apartment in, I don't know where we are technically, Marina Del Rey, or Mar Vista, maybe. I don't know. We're kind of in the middle of a few different neighborhoods. That was the other nice part of me leaving for a week for this bachelor trip I went to in Alaska is I left my poor wife to move everything. So you and her can debate who I inconvenienced more these last couple of days.
Oh, I'm glad you had fun and that you didn't get mauled by a bear. So
that's true.
you deserve to be mauled by a bear, but it would have really inconvenienced me going forward. So I'm glad you did it.
That's right. Speaking of inconvenienced, the Dodgers did win today as we record on this Wednesday night. They swept the Twins. They continue to have the most wins in baseball. You know, all the big picture stuff with them seems to be going okay. Even Kyle Tucker, which I know you hit on the episode on Monday with David Bassett, is supposed to be back in the lineup on Friday. But it was an adventurous game today, especially with Shohei Ohtani and Dalton Rushing, who had some miscommunication. There were these scenes of Rushing getting consoled or encouraged in the dugout from everybody from Freddie Freeman to Dave Roberts. I know both guys talked about it after the game. Again, a game the Dodgers still won, a game that Ohtani, I still think, ended up pitching okay in and had 8 strikeouts, got through the 6th inning again, keeps his ERA under 1.5. But what did you make of today's scene? What was it like in the moment? And we'll dive kind of deeper into Ohtani too and how his pitching has gone the last couple times. But what did we learn about kind of him and Rushing? What's to me a really just kind of fascinating dynamic of the biggest star in the game, like the youngest or one of the youngest players on the Dodgers team, and somebody who is really hard on himself, but is the kind of moment that can be kind of formative in a young player's career if handled the right way. Kind of what all happened there today?
Yeah, so I think, what watching it, what I thought of, like the first thing that came to my mind is something AJ Ellis said years ago, right? And AJ Ellis was kind of this journeyman-ish catcher who kind of became Clayton Kershaw's designated guy, became one of his closest friend on the team. And what Ellis used to like to say was, our catcher is basically a servant. You're serving the pitcher, right? And I think Dalton Rushing, I think one of the reasons we talk about him as much as we have is Dalton Rushing thinks he's a star, right? I mean, the universe revolves around Dalton Rushing, I think, in Dalton Rushing's head.
Yeah,
And I think,
or maybe thinks he's
and
going
I
to
think,
become a star.
right, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? And that's in some cases really good. I mean, if you look at his offensive performance earlier this year, I would argue is that, I mean, most guys in his position, played sparingly last year and wasn't great. You don't come into this year thinking oh, I'm going to be great. This guy thought he was going to be great, and he was great, at least at the beginning. So I think to me it's kind of this. Now Dave Roberts brought up a fair point when I brought up the Ellis Kershaw comp, right? Especially in terms of Ellis kind of seemed to know how to kind of get in and out of conversations with Kershaw without angering him more. And it was just that everything that Rushing did seemed to really upset Ohtani. And it just kind of kept growing and growing
because
and growing.
because
And
let's
this
go through
started,
this.
yeah. So
Yeah,
let's start. Actually, this is the one most people miss, right? What the one people missed was in the first inning, there was this borderline strike that Ohtani wanted him to challenge. Rushing says no. It was a strike, by the way, right? So I think
and this
Ohtani was already, yeah,
and that goes back to that game in Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago when Dalton Rushing didn't challenge a couple close calls in an inning that ended up getting away from Ohtani. So this is not the
right,
first instance that we've seen this.
yeah. And then in the second inning, well, it was interesting because so sitting next to me was Yu Suzuki, a former professional pitcher for the Oryx Buffaloes. He used to be a locker mate of Yoshinobu Yamamoto in Japan. He now does the wildly successful Japanese podcast 50-50 with me. But anyway, so we're watching this inning kind of unfold, and Yu says like, "Hey, I think Otani's fingers messed up, right? And is basically keeping him from throwing the sweeper and throwing the curveball, and that's why he keeps throwing this splitter that he can't seem to control at all, right? Otherwise, like why would he be throwing this pitch? So you already kind of noticed like in the pitch selection that something kind of seemed like wrong, right? And now he's falling behind in counts, he's giving up hits, balls are kind of getting hit hard, and you can kind of just see the frustration kind of starting to build. The first run scores on a pass ball where, according to Ohtani, after what happened was that he got two signals from the pitch com. And right, so I guess it was curveball and then fastball. And then he was like, well, he hit fastball second. So I threw him a fastball and the thing just sails right by him. Rushing kind of didn't help that because, when he went to go collect the ball, he almost like glares back at the mound. And so basically, in the third inning, Otani decides that he is going to start calling his own pitches. And look, my guess is that there was a part of him that was kind of like, okay, like I'm really gonna like step on the gas now to make sure that guy knows it's his fault because Otani was incredible. I think he struck out the side in the next inning, right? And like
Yes, he
everything's
did.
like over 100. Like he was nasty, right? Or the breaking balls are disgusting. Um, yeah, he transformed into the best pitcher in baseball over the next four innings there. And I do, and there was one inning I think where they kind of came where they're coming off the field. They have this little discussion. Now the ump kind of breaks up the discussion as they're kind of walking off because he has to check Otani's hands for like sticky stuff, whatever. But one thing that you did see as Otani gets pulled away, he kind of slams his glove on his thigh. So there's frustration there, and yeah. So what we saw, I think probably, Rushing afterwards talked about how embarrassed he was. He wouldn't get into specifics about what he was embarrassed about. But he did, to his credit, look, and I'm sure people kind of talk to him, right? That, look, you cannot be showing up the superstar. Now, I'm like, again, on one hand, I love that about Rushing, that he has the balls. Can I even say that? You're just going to have to bleep that. Okay. That he has the, or does he can bleep that he has the what would you call it, the testicular fortitude to stand up to the
There you
biggest
go.
to stand up to the biggest star in the sport like that. But that's kind of not what you do, right? I mean, because the team is just kind of so reliant on Ohtani. You don't need to be adding to this guy's like kind of frustration. Now look, it was a good first step after the game in terms of, Rushing kind of acknowledging like, hey, like that one was on me. I have to be better. I'm embarrassed. Now he didn't really again, I asked him now, right, because at bats were also bad. I mean, he almost had an immaculate inning of his own. His first at bat, he struck out on three pitches. Second at bat, he struck out on three pitches. Third at bat, strike one, strike two.
I watched
Barely
this at
fouled,
bat.
yeah, barely fouls off a pitch to avoid the self immaculate inning. Takes the ball and then strikes out on the next pitch. Right, but he had a rough night at the plate too. I mean, this is probably one of the rougher nights that he had as a professional. And again, like you kind of take in like the personality and kind of right what it means to him, obviously, and it kind of wound up in real, like, again, like everybody kind of kept their mouth shut afterwards, right? And they kind of kept it in house as they should, something like this. But my suspicion is, they right, Dave Roberts had his arm around them, like, hey, don't worry, he wants to call his own pitches, that's fine, he's a star, it's okay. Don't take it personally. At some point, Freddie Freeman came over, as he was kind of like licking his wounds. And so you kind of do wonder psychologically, where does this kind of put him? Again, I think it's a good, like, look, I'm sure he's probably like not happy right now, but he did at least say the right thing. And he kind of acknowledged that, hey, you know what? He's Ohtani and I'm not. And that is kind of step one in terms of kind of going forward from here. Because look, it doesn't sound like Will Smith is coming back anytime soon, right? Or like, at least this is not going to be, I mean, it sounds like this is going to be more than a week type thing, right? We asked Robertson to be coming back in San Diego. No. So this kind of looks like it could last a little bit. And, the Dodgers have obviously kind of been kind of careful with how they've handled this. And so, they're going to have to go with Rushing for a while. And now you have to ask yourself, I mean, is this going to be, right? Because if this doesn't go well, this turns into Becky Robinson is going to turn into the old, Austin Barnes catching
He's
Clayton
the new
Kershaw.
AJ Elliott.
Right. Yeah. He's going to be the guy, right? I want that guy catching me. And you don't want that as Rushing, right? And like, look, and realistically, if Will Smith comes back, right, is there really like a place for both guys on this team long term? I'm not so sure, right? And probably, what's best for Dalton Rushing at some point is probably that he finds somewhere else to go and kind of become the player that he wants to be. I mean, realistically, it is, right? I mean, it's just not, if you're here and assuming Will Smith does not move off the catching position, right, he's not going to kind of get the opportunities that he's going to want to get in Major League Baseball without going somewhere else. But I do think how you enter an organization is very important, right? And it's one thing if it's like, oh, you know what, that's the guy that, right, that's Joe Montana now kind of stuck behind Steve Young, like, let's go get Joe Montana. That's one thing, right? It's a whole different thing. It's like, oh, that's the guy that, the best player in the world did not want to pitch to anymore. And so we're going to kind of take him. And I do think things like that do kind of make a difference. So this is a big thing for Rushing. And again, I think his post-game address with the media was, that was kind of the right first step. And let's kind of see where it goes from here.
Okay. But before we trade Dalton Rushing, here's what struck me watching this all unfold today is it's really the first time I think we've seen publicly that, like, when Ohtani got here, he's such a big star. And even for all the other stars the Dodgers have had, they've done a really good job of avoiding these situations where, like, there's ego or there's like obviously like one guy gets prioritized over another. Like, that happens, but I don't think we've really seen it play out very often where it's like guys feuding on the field, which happens, right? We've seen it like with Giants guys this year. We've seen it obviously play out very ugly with the Mets, and the Dodgers have come nowhere near even having a situation like this. And this is obviously, in the grand scheme of things, a pretty minor thing, I think, what happened today. But it was interesting to see like Ohtani and somebody else sort of like butt heads or have miscommunication or however you want to describe it. And what was encouraging to me, like, if you're looking for a silver lining out of this, it is that the guys went up to Rushing in the dugout the way they did. It's that Rushing did, as you pointed out, give the kind of quotes he did after. It's that Ohtani did not throw him under the bus. And this was the kind of situation to me today that kind of speaks to when the Dodgers talk about having like a clubhouse culture and being able to make all of these big stars and personalities work. It's in part because of this. And now, look, obviously, like Ohtani and Rushing, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out who falls into their places there. But that was kind of the first thing that struck me about this, as like, this is a good example of how these guys have created this environment where nobody gets in each other's way, even with all the big names that they have on the team. The second part is that the Ohtani, like, look, Dalton Rushing had not caught Ohtani before Will Smith got hurt. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think we're seeing now part of it. I will say, Dalton Rushing's work with other pitchers, by all accounts, is good, especially like the young pitchers that he obviously is going to have a better relationship with, that he came up with at various times in the minor league system, that he's just been around more. I think Justin Robleski especially has talked about how much he's enjoyed pitching to Dalton Rushing this year. Alex Vezia was talking the other night when he had a save situation about how Dalton Rushing came out to the mound and kind of pounded on the chest, and after he walked his leadoff guy and said, you got this, get in there. So, like, it's not that Dalton Rushing is bad catching everything. It is just in this kind of specific thing. I think Ohtani is and Dave Roberts, I think, has said as much. Like, there is a nuance that comes with pitching to him, and probably a way to like communicate with him. Probably speaks well of Will Smith, who I know has caught some heat at times for his own like pitch sequencing and decisions behind the plate, but for what he brings. And I think it kind of just underscores, right? Like, it's like dealing with or having Ohtani around, like, it's just a different guy to have as a teammate and a young player who, yes, is very hard-headed and blunt with his emotions and wears his emotions on his sleeve. Like, it was just fascinating to me to watch him be kind of on the other end of the situation with him. The last thing I want to touch on is with Ohtani's pitching himself. So in these last 3 starts now, which have all been to Dalton Rushing, but it's now 11 runs, 9 earned runs in his last 19 innings. Seems like there's been a couple of these innings where the frustrations or whatever else aside, he's kind of gotten singled to death and has not been able to get out of them. My take on this is good for Ohtani and the Dodgers for him to have to go through a stretch like this. You think back to last year. He went from
So
basically
Dalton Rushing will never have this. Dalton Rushing will never catch him again. That this will break open the door for Chucky Robinson. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, like, look, because this is going to become like a real question now, right? Was this because I think our assumption was, okay, well, this is all kind of starting to add up, and he's tired and whatever, right? And it's like, well, I mean, who is behind the plate? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, because this is. I don't think he just like exploded out of nowhere either, right?
Yeah.
This is probably, in retrospect, I mean, because that was one thing Ohtani did mention. He said kind of like in terms of like, because one thing he kind of made it sound like was, kind of like, okay, it's like, some of it is also like the in-game stuff, right? You see the way they're kind of approaching things. And, Ohtani obviously having so many weapons has a lot of stuff at his disposal, and he wants to throw off tinier guys and, right, mix in different things. And, here's this guy that kind of basically right. He's a guy that's kind of been used to, driving an automatic Toyota, which is totally fine. I drive an automatic Toyota, but all of a sudden now he's given a Ferrari and he kind of doesn't know what to do with it. And I think that might be kind of the frustration that like Ohtani says there, right? And he did reference also the last start, right? That, well, it was like this last time too.
Yeah.
And so,
even in Pittsburgh, he talked about, I had to shake him off more, things like that.
Yeah.
But all that aside, the fact
Chucky
that
time.
No, the fact I think you actually just let
Chucky time.
Keep catching him, and because there is a scenario this year where you get to October and Will Smith gets hurt or something, and Dalton Rushing is going to be back there. Like, you do want to make sure that like these guys can work together in a way that this sort of thing isn't going to be liable to happen. But all of that aside, I think back to last year. Ohtani basically went from build-up mode as a pitcher in the regular season to the intensity of postseason starts where adversity is around every corner, and frankly didn't really handle it that well. There was the game in Philly that he let get away from him late and had to be bailed out by Teoscar Hernandez's home run. There were the 2 World Series starts, including Game 7, when once it started going sideways, could not stop it. I think it is good that Ohtani is going through a stretch now as a pitcher where things aren't going right, and he ends up in these innings that kind of start going sideways on him, and he's going to have to figure out, like, at this stage with where his stuff is and where he's at as a pitcher, like, what do I need to turn to when it gets really hot, so that even in these kind of situations, I don't let it become a 3-run or a 4-run inning. He didn't get that experience at all last year. And while these starts maybe have cost him a chance to win the Cy Young, I think I've obviously left him very visibly frustrated. Not that Ohtani needs a lot of growing and learning moments, but I think when it comes to being a pitcher and learning how to navigate like these kind of, when I need to get to that next gear, when everything isn't going right, what do I kind of turn to? I think it's at least good that he's kind of wound up in these situations, these last couple outings that, have not gone perfectly the way the start of the season did for him.
I guess what I'm kind of wondering though is like with Yamamoto, right? When you kind of look at like last year and where it turned from him, it was after he got bombed in Milwaukee. And that's when he decided, you know what? I am calling my own pitches now. And
Maybe this part of it.
maybe this is where this goes now. I mean, with Anaheim, honestly, that kind of became a thing, right? I mean, he started calling it, there was a season where he was calling his own pitches, and honestly, it didn't always go great, right? And there were, I think, if you had asked people over there privately in their moments, right, they would have told you, like, yeah, I'm not really sure this is the best idea. And obviously Ohtani's kind of got a lot on his plate right now. But hey, look at today.
Yeah, they'd finish strong. All right, before we get to Tony Gwynn Jr., anything else come out of these last couple days? I thoroughly enjoyed you and Vassay covered a lot of ground the other day. Those are well done. In my absence here.
Yeah, I guess, right, this Kyle Tucker situation is kind of interesting. Right, and kind of basically the question, that I posed to Dave Roberts was, if he's too nice of a guy to kind of be able to ignore the obvious evidence in front of him, right? Statistics. But in that, Roberts mentioned, like, well, Mookie's kind of like that, right? And I was kind of like, whoa, that's kind of interesting. But last 11 games here, I think Mookie's hitting 378. Had a big game today.
Not
triple
looking
short of
so
a
unlucky
cycle
anymore.
No, he doesn't. I mean, he looks just like good now, right? And that's a potential game changing type of thing for the Dodgers. I mean, if you get Mookie Betts playing at an all-star level, they're not going to lose many games the rest of the year.
All right. Well, if they don't lose many games over the next couple weeks, they might just lock up the division because they have two series.
It's already locked up. Okay. Man.
Don't fire that door now. We need Suzuki to get us through the next couple weeks.
I know our editors are trying to kind of manufacture this, like, oh, look at the big weekend series. This series does not matter. This series does not matter.
Important.
It's nice because we like going to San Diego. This thing is like, the Padres are dead in the water.
I think the word I'm just going to stick with is pivotal, because they can just kind of kill it off now. Either way, two series coming up against the Padres. We brought on Tony Gwynn Jr. to talk about it, talk about what's going on in San Diego, get his take on some other things. Thought he was pretty interesting, had a good time. Love hearing from former players about what it was like having you in the clubhouse covering them. We cover all that here with Tony Gwynn Jr. on Dodgers Post.
All right, he is a former Padre, a former Dodger, an 8-year MLB veteran, current Padres broadcaster, and host of Gwynn and Chris on 97.3 The Fan San Diego, which is part of the Odyssey Network and can be heard online. It's Tony Gwynn Jr. Tony, thanks for joining Dodgers Post.
No problem, Jack. Dylan, how you guys doing today?
Great. So I have been a guest on Gwynn and Chris in the past, and I'm sure that Tony invites me on this show because he knows how easy it is to wind me up and that I'm kind of prone to say anything. So, Tony, you know the type of show that you just agreed to come on right now. So we're going to get right to the point.
All right.
Why do the Padres suck?
All right. I think that they have fallen a little short of offensively this season, and I think that's in part due to the slow start Manny got off to, the slow start Toddy got off to, slow start Jackson got off to. And when your three best guys get off to a slow start, offensively, you're going to struggle. Fortunately, they were able to kind of navigate that through the first couple of months. It's kind of caught up to them here in recent weeks, but it does now start to look like the offense may be starting to turn the corner. You're going to get some good news coming up, probably after the break with Musgrove and Pavetta. You're hopeful to get those guys back. But I think that is the main reason why they haven't, lived up to the expectation, is just those guys have gotten off to slow start.
I mean, we've talked about this before. I think this baseball is more interesting when the Padres are good. And I mean, even for us, I think, right? I mean, it's, here we are in June. It's middle of the season. You can't even see the trade deadline. There's nothing to write about.
Not a lot of column fodder for Dylan.
Yeah. No.
Usually, like, I look forward to this trip because it's like I get to go to a great city, and it's also some games that mean something. And right now, they're 9 games back, and of the two, you talked about the big dogs obviously kind of getting off to the slow start there. Which of those two guys are you more concerned about? Is it Machado, who's hitting only 185, or Tatis, who only, the power just hasn't been there for some reason?
I don't. I would say it's neither of those guys. It's probably Jackson, only because he doesn't have the track record that the other two have. I'm probably least concerned about Manny because he has notoriously got off to slow starts. This is probably one of the slower ones, but he always ends up right around his career averages. And so it's going to be a little bit a bigger climb average wise this year for him. But you look at the power side, RBI side, he's kind of right where he typically is. And so he looks like he's starting to come round into shape. But I say if you may pin me down, tried to get me to be concerned about one of the three, it'd probably be Jackson.
Now, obviously, the Padres slide here over the last month has kind of coincided with the Dodgers catching fire again, and I think like the overlooked part, doing it without two all-star starters in the rotation, a bunch of guys in their lineup hurt, which has kind of sparked, or at least come at the same time as a lot of this conversation about the Dodgers being bad for baseball. Obviously, is getting framed through the upcoming CBA negotiations and the pending lockout. Yeah. I'm curious for you, as someone who's obviously like followed them from an interesting perspective, from in the division and seen kind of the way that they've developed over the last, decade now. Like, what have you made of some of the critiques that get made about the Dodgers, what their dominance has been like, and kind of what it means to the state of the sport at this kind of pivotal moment, with obviously the uncertainty looming over next year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, before I answer, I'll say that I'm already wired to not kind of buy into those thought process. I'm son of a former ball player. I played, had a career myself, and so I just can't buy into the fact that they can just that they're so much further better than everybody else. And listen, talent wise, I don't think you can question that. On paper, they certainly are the most talented roster in baseball, but the game is not played on paper, and that's why you can have a team like the Dodgers one game away from being eliminated in 24, one game getting eliminated in 25 in the World Series, when they on paper should have just blown everybody off the map. And so I'm kind of already wired not to buy into that. I would say that there are certain advantages that the Dodgers certainly have, but they also utilize those advantages and take advantage, by the structure of their organization and how they run things. And so I think although they as I said, they have some advantages that certainly allow them to do that, I still think teams can find smart ways to go out and still be competitive and be on the same playing field when the game starts. So I think we've seen it, and it just so happens that the Dodgers have won 2 straight World Series, and it coincides with a collective bargain agreement and owners kind of wanting to change things. So it's a easy, lazy narrative to kind of follow, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, well, and when we think of like the upcoming lockout, I think what's kind of interesting about this Dodgers team is that obviously no player wants to miss games, wants to see next season be sacrificed. But in their case, they could be playing for, if they win another one this year, like 4 in a row, they could be playing to kind of cement their dynasty. Obviously, a lot of these guys are closer to the end of their careers. And I think like the specter of a lockout in that clubhouse comes with especially kind of stark cost because of that. It honestly has reminded me of, when there was a lockout in 2021, we spent a lot of time in our coverage focusing on obviously your dad's chase of 400 in 1994. And
yeah,
I'm sure what had to have been a kind of conflicting decision for him with the season he was having, but to also go on strike. Like, what do you remember about that year with him? What did you remember him kind of talking about, and kind of just how he felt, obviously, making a personal sacrifice for the bigger goals of the players union?
I remember it not being an issue at all with my dad. I don't even know that he ever thought twice about it. I knew I think he thought, later on down the line, it's something that he thought he could have accomplished, but not once did a conversation ever come up where it was like, man, I could really do this right now, but I got to sack. It never once did it come up. And so, I think what I remember is in 1994, I think going into the All-Star break, maybe even before that, they knew they were going to strike. And so I think at that point, especially the way that generation kind of came up, it didn't matter what anybody else got on. I don't think my dad was the only one having a historic season at that point either. There was, I think Matt Williams was having an unbelievable season at that point. And so there are a lot of different things. I think Montreal Expos were
Right.
running away with the East at that point. So there were so many different things that happened, but it didn't matter because there was a bigger thought process in the end of things. And I think you fast forward to now when you hear the conversations that are happening, it's the same thing, right? This time the players aren't going to be the ones, striking. It sounds like the owners are going to be the ones locking out, and so we at least at this point don't have to worry about missing a World Series, but there is a possibility of games being missed, and it does kind of refocus that history again from 1994.
Tony, kind of speaking of your dad, one thing I've really respected about you is kind of the way you've handled being Tony Gwynn Jr. It seems like you've really been able to, right, embrace kind of the good parts of being Tony Gwynn's son, not let the pressure of it kind of get to you at all. You've always seemed very natural. I was just curious just in that, I think like most, right, boys, whatever, right, you get to like a certain age, right, you want some distance from your dad, you rebel a little bit. Obviously I didn't know you back in high school or anything, but
Right.
your name is Tony Gwynn Jr., right? You can't like ever like completely separate yourself from your dad. And I guess I'm just kind of wondering what that process was like for you to just kind of, I guess obviously it was always kind of part of your life, but again, to kind of not get saddled with maybe kind of the downside of being Tony Gwynn's son, because you see it with other right athletes that kind of share the dad's name, even as well as I think Bronny's handled, right, being LeBron's son. You could see it's just so much, and he right, there's a certain, you always kind of feel like he's addressing it even though he's not, and right, with you it always just seems so natural.
I think there's probably a pretty early stage in my life that I made the decision to embrace it. I grew up with a lot of sons of athletes or sons of baseball players, I should say. And I got to see the different approaches, right? Some ran as far away from it as possible. Some really struggled with how to, find their identity. I chose to embrace it. And, my dad, I think, allowed for me to do that. I mean, I wasn't ever really trying to run away from my pops. And maybe that was because he was gone a lot, playing and before I was of age where I could actually travel with them. I didn't get to see him as much. So I was always really trying to find more time to be around my pops. And so as I got older, I think my parents had given me a good foundation, and I was confident in my own self that I didn't worry about, and I don't know that I thought about it a whole lot in terms of, trying to come out of the shadow of my pops. I think I recognized pretty early that my dad was a special baseball player, and if I got anywhere close to that, I would probably be okay. And I accepted that there was a chance I wouldn't be nearly as good, and so I think that kind of just allowed for me to be me and go out and kind of find my own lane within the game of Major League Baseball. And I think that therefore comes off across like, it's not really a deal.
It's amazing to me. So we have a bit on this show where Dylan quizzes me on the Dodgers during his time as a beat writer. And this is a factoid I was not aware of until we were preparing for this interview. That 2012 Dodger team had 5 sons of former big leaguers on it. You, Jerry Hairston Jr., Amon DeJesus Jr., and D. Gordon, and Scott Van Slyke. Like, what? Yeah. What was that like? Is that something like you guys would talk about? Obviously, like a wide range of careers and personalities, I'm sure. But were there things that you guys kind of had in common or similar experiences when you wind up in a situation like that? Because I can't remember a team outside of that that's had that kind of fatherly pedigree altogether.
We obviously had, our fathers all playing in common. D was like my little brother. I basically helped raise him, to the big leagues. I don't know that any of us actually knew that was the case until the Dodgers started making a deal about it. I think we obviously knew our dads play, but I don't know that we were sitting there counting, oh, there's one, there's two, there's three. It wasn't, at least for my part, it didn't dawn on me until maybe a couple days before, we had all the dads out for first pitch. I know D's dad was there, my father was there on a Father's Day game. That it started to be a deal. I think we all might have gotten to the lineup too one day together. So it was pretty cool, but I don't know that it was something that I think any of us discussed prior to it happening.
Tony, that was really like my favorite era of covering Dodger baseball. I was actually laughing with Freddie Freeman about this last night. Saying, you guys are too good now, man. Like,
They are.
When the team was bankrupt, that was like my wheelhouse, right? And I'm actually in Minnesota right now. The last time I was here, the team had just filed for bankruptcy, and I remember, I remember during the game, I was calling all the people that the Dodgers owed money to. Kazi Shi was one of those guys.
That doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise me. You were out digging up something. I see you.
Yeah. After the game, I remember I ran into Kershaw and AJ Ellis at a bar. At the time, I was at the LA Times, which was also bankrupt. And so bought him a couple of beers, walked over. Welcome to the club, boys. But, you, you know, you were there, obviously, when they filed for bankruptcy, when Guggenheim bought it. What was right? They went from, right, kind of these bare bone type of off seasons to all of a sudden trading for Hanley, trading for, Adrian Gonzalez, your former teammate in San Diego. What was it like to kind of go through those, that year and a half when there was so much like drastic change?
It was exciting. Anytime you experience really like both extremes and like I don't know that there's very many people who can say that they've experienced that kind of deal. When the McCourts, had their divorce and the team ended up being sold, we I don't know that I realized it in the moment, but you can see the kind of fall off in terms of how things were being done. But the moment the new group took over, you could see it almost elevate within that same amount of time, and the transition was kind of crazy. It went from in the rosters of first place, you really saw that, right? You trade for Hanley, you eventually trade for Carl, and you bring Adrian over. Those were moves that the previous offseason, the Dodgers kind of had to play it quiet. They had to play it small. And so in some ways that was the blessing for me, because that's really how I ended up there. They were in a spot where they didn't have the money to go out and get the big free agents. So that provided an opportunity for me. So I got to see the end of the McCourt era and into the Walters era, where, they've kind of had a lot of success since then.
Well, on the subject of ownership, what has it been like, this year, obviously, with the new owners in San Diego, with the team selling for almost $4 billion, and just kind of what I think obviously, even from a Dodger perspective, Peter Seidler was such a kind of present figure in that rivalry and in the Padres kind of revival. And, we've written a lot about, I think, how important the Padres being good has been for the Dodgers to kind of push them. What has it been like this year with the new group that's come in, and kind of how optimistic people are there of kind of continuing, some of the things that he established?
I think people are very optimistic. The new ownership group coming in. I don't know that it's actually happened yet. It's the things still need to happen, but people are very excited. And, I think it goes without saying how much we miss Peter, because, I think maybe this off season's a little different. If this past off season's a little different, if Peter's still around, and you just miss his presence in general. I mean, he was such a positive kind of light over the organization, and so that's a tough replacement. And I think he had done such a wonderful job that the bar is pretty high now for the next ownership. And so, I mean, everything that we've heard and read, it seems like this is the team that's gonna be able to add at the deadline. And anytime you can give AJ Preller an opportunity to add, he hasn't missed very often. And so I think that's what everybody's really excited about with this ownership. I think it's one of the first ownerships to have two minority owners come in and own a baseball team. I think that's exciting. There's a lot of positive vibes in San Diego as it pertains to the new group coming in.
How important is that for that market, especially in light of the departure of the Chargers? Obviously, right? They came to LA. I know there are a couple, right? There are a couple of soccer teams. There's a men's soccer team and a women's soccer team that both draw pretty well. But obviously, I would assume the Padres are kind of king right now. What does that kind of mean for the market in terms of even just kind of how the city feels about itself, maybe?
It was the worst and best thing that ever happened to San Diego. I think that the Chargers left. I think people still are hurt about it, but in some ways it has changed the whole way that San Diego operates. Chargers leaving left a gaping hole that the Padres have been able to fill. And I think that's why you see the attendance, what it is. I think that's partly why they are able to sell for what they were able to sell for, when it's saturated like it is with the main team in town being the Padres versus splitting that for however many years they have. I think it only adds value to this organization. And so the group here has done a great job. Eric Grupner and his crew have done a great job really capitalizing on that vacancy that the Chargers left. And so, I mean, this is as passionate now as a fan base that I ever recall. Sometimes it's a little bit over the top, but nonetheless, I think it's a problem that you like to have.
Well, Tony, really thank you for coming on. Ernest, when our producer Ernest kind of asked me for some numbers of some people. To be honest, there were some former players on my phone where I'm like, I'm not really sure I want to talk to this guy.
But I'm glad I'm one of the guys you want to talk to.
We'll end here. Tony, what is it like having Dylan be somebody who's covering your team as a beat reporter in there every day?
You better not have. First of all, you better not have any skeletons around you because he's going to find them and he's going to expose them. And you just got to be on your toes around Dylan. Man, he pays attention to every word that you say, how you say it, and he's pretty good at kind of reading between the lines, if you will, in those scenarios. So you just got to be on point when he's got the mic or he's got the reporter next to you, because he'll get you.
There you go. Dylan Hernandez, a vehicle of accountability. I love it.
Well, I never had to get on Tony because he was this is the thing, man. People forget he could play. Like, he was a really, really good defender, really great glove out there. And also, one of the things, and look this up, people, that if you haven't seen this, because this was kind of a viral clip at the time.
Oh, yeah.
When the fans were talking to Tony, and Tony kind of has his glove kind of right by his rear, and he's kind of going like this, like he's kind of talking out of his backside. So, the hilarious video. Look that up if you hadn't.
It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite encounters with the.
You remember what they were saying to you?
He was intoxicated, and so he was just kind of yapping the whole game, and then eventually I just had enough. So that was what came to mind.
That was beautiful, man. And again, thank you so much, and I am looking forward to seeing you at the ballpark on Friday.
Dylan, Jack, appreciate you guys having me on. I'll catch both of you guys. Jack, you go. Oh no, you're in Alaska. Are you gonna be back by
I'll
then?
Be back.
He'll
be back, okay. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I'm sure.
He'll be back from his top 1% cruise. That's what David Bassett felt.
Don't worry, I got you, Jack. I'm gonna be all over Mr. Bassett. He's a big talker now, so me and him are gonna have a conversation.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, Tony, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
No problem. You guys take care.
All right. Thanks again to Tony, who good insight on kind of a lot of these subplots going on too with the labor stuff. We've been writing about that at CaliforniaPost.com. So that was interesting. It's interesting to hear his viewpoint as a player and talking about his dad's viewpoint in that 94 season.
And you gotta see too, between playing here right in LA with playing with the Padres, playing with the Brewers. He knows a lot of people. It seems like he's like best friends with everybody. He's like one of those types of people, right? And you can kind of see again, kind of the demeanor. He doesn't, while he takes his business seriously, he doesn't take himself maybe too seriously, where it's he comes across right. He doesn't come across as haughty or anything. So, yeah, definitely one of the more likable guys in baseball, and he wants to do more than just talk. I'm sure there's a job in baseball waiting for him if he'd want it.
Yeah, there you go. All right, we're gonna get to our predictions here in a minute. But first, I dove into the reader comments this week because I was curious after watching the episode and some talk about if I should be welcome back on this podcast or if I should be permanently replaced. Just wanted to make sure that this wasn't a popular opinion. It was not. I was glad to see. People were suggesting that the three of us need to get on with the essay. Maybe we'll try to make that happen in the future. But no, you guys did good, which I think it was all summed up in this comment from BJPGR. Very insightful. Great to see Dave let his hair down. Then he got into the other big topic that you guys talked about. Dylan, I think you'd do well on the keto diet. I lost 80 pounds in less than a year. I had a beard and triple chin too. After the weight loss, I kept the beard, but I kept it trimmed. What do you think? Keto diet? That's going to be your move here?
Yeah, I think that I have. This has been a bad trip for me, man. I've fallen off the wagon, so to speak. The press dining in Minnesota is delicious. Yeah, I don't think keto's for me, but wow, yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I had that comment written as one of the ones I was going to read here, just because 80 pounds. No, well done. Seriously, well done, because that really requires like a commitment to want to change yourself, and I'm not sure. I'm kind of like,
and I kind of lack.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, yeah, you know what? Maybe dying's not that bad.
Okay, great. On that note, wasn't there another one in there? Someone wanted you to give me 3 pieces of marriage advice?
Yeah, marriage advice. Okay, we were probably saying the same ones. Okay, 1, I think your wife is always right. Okay, 2, if you are the primary breadwinner, you are an ATM. Don't get that twisted. But hopefully, you marry the right person, which they will acknowledge kind of the efforts that you make, and not make you feel completely like an ATM machine. But the biggest one to me is always just kind of don't go to bed angry. You have a fight, settle it before you go to bed. So those are my 3.
Rule number 4: don't leave in the middle of a apartment move. That one might make the list too. But
yeah.
All right, prediction time. You guys did not cover your Roki Sasaki quality start from last week, so is that just going down as a loss?
I mean, I think that was directionally correct. 5 2/3. I mean, he was right there.
All right, I'll give you directionally correct for it. So that brought you briefly up to 6 points. Then you picked Ohtani 10 strikeouts. You want to try to go for directionally correct?
Yes, because somebody actually in the comments, I don't know if you guys saw that. I just checked right before we logged on. Somebody made a point that Ohtani did have 10 strikeouts, 8 as a hit, 8 as a pitcher, 2 as a hitter.
All right.
No, I did it. No, I did it. I didn't get it. I thought he was gonna go. I thought he was gonna go 10 on that, because that's, to me, is like a you do it or you don't type thing, right? I mean, because last week you went with multiple home runs, and he did get 1. Yeah. So
all right.
And then Bassett said on your behalf he picked that one of the games was going to get rained out.
What kind of prediction was that? I was watching this thing. I was so excited to see what he would come up with, and not only was it boring, but it was like, did they even put the tarp on the field yesterday? Like, was it even?
There was. Yeah, it was.
Okay. Did the game start on time?
25 minutes late.
Okay. Well,
but it was like, we were initially kind of like, okay, this is going to be like 8:30 start. instead of 6:40. So we were expecting a couple hours delay. I think that was kind of the kind of widespread expectation. And then
So you ran to the back and set your phone alarm for 8:35 to sneak in another.
yeah, I
nap.
was tired yesterday too, man. Hey, did you know, by the way, the Twins, on the logo that they have names?
Did they have names?
The two twins.
Oh,
It
like the
didn't-
one on the big center field scoreboard?
Yeah, it never even occurred to me like why I'm so stupid. Like it didn't even occur to me why they were the twins.
Well, they're the
Like,
twins because it's the
yeah.
Twin Cities.
Yeah, I didn't even. That never
Oh,
even
you
occurred to me.
didn't put that
No,
together?
no, I never. Oh, I just never thought of it. I just didn't care enough, to be honest. But yeah, they're named Minnie and Paul,
You didn't ever think
which
like
kind of
I
makes
wonder what
sense.
the I wonder what the C in their logo stands for. That's just kind of random.
Yeah,
like
no,
a
I
T-
never.
It's like a T crowns
yeah,
with a C. Yeah, Twin Cities.
yeah, no, I just
Creative.
never. Yeah, I just, yeah, some of the things that you kind of don't care about, you just never bother to really think about. Yeah.
All right, that leaves you at 5 points, me at 3. Before we get to trivia to wrap this up, what's your prediction for this week?
Well, God, if I say the Dodgers are going to win the series, this is kind of boring, isn't it?
Oh, I was going to pick a sweep, so
Yeah. What's it? It's Roki.
against Walker Buehler
It's Walker Buehler, Yamamoto,
and Emmett
and
Sheehan,
then
who's kind of a question mark. That one's
Yeah, he is kind of a question mark. I kind of don't like that one.
Okay, well, I will pick it while you think because the Dodgers did not do great against Walker Buehler last year. It's kind of an awkward one. I think they'll. I'm very curious to watch Walker Buehler pitch in San Diego against the Dodgers. I think that's going to be great theater. I also think they're going to have success, and I think Emmett Sheehan figures something out this week. So that's kind of like I don't trust it enough to be like, oh, he's going to have a quality start, but I think he'll do enough for them to win that game and sweep the series.
All right, I am gonna go with. I'm fully on board with this like Mookie Betts is back thing. I think he's back. Like I think he's back. Right. I don't think that this is like a little glimpse type thing. I think Mookie Betts is back, and I am gonna say, is this enough? 6 hits over the 3 games.
That's enough. That would be
All right, I am
3
gonna go
2-hit
6
games.
hits. Six hits for Mookie Betts.
All right. Let's finish with trivia. Just
boy.
a point each if we get it right or wrong. Do you have one?
Oh boy, I don't.
No. We could just skip trivia. You need to get to sleep.
Yeah, let's.
Clearly.
Well, dude, I still have to write.
I know.
This is because I think this is the thing, man. If I do this trip solo, I think it's worse on me than it is for you, like not coming with me. Because like half the time I would write from home. B, you don't like have to do my job, right?
Well,
Like you do your beat writer thing, whatever. And here I have to do
That's-
your job and I have to do my job.
that's a fair argument that
Now,
you make.
granted, I do. Now I do your job like kind of very half-assed. My takeaways are like very brief, but yeah, it's oh my God, I'm so tired. I
Yeah.
could just I could fall asleep right here.
I
I mean,
think what you
the thing
really-
I was drinking
I-
earlier, that was a Red Bull.
Oh, I was going to ask if that was a wine, but I was like,
No, that is
just
Red
in a
Bull,
wine
man. I mean, I'm like slouching in my chair right now. I'm ready to I might just take I would take like an hour nap, except I'm afraid that I'm not going to wake up.
I think what you meant to say is, Jack, your job is harder than I imagined. And it has worn me out doing this for 3 days.
It has. Well, but the thing is, like, you're kind of done when the game, right? Like, I mean, I know you rewrite and stuff, and I don't want to like downplay that part, but like, you're more or less like done when the game's done, and mine just kind of starts, right? And unfortunately, look, like nobody wants to hear this crap. I'm
That's
sorry,
true.
people. I'm
No
not
more complaining about your job.
No more complaining about my job.
All right. Well, I had a beautiful time in Alaska, so thank you so much for allowing me.
Man, now, just like every
take a
day,
mini
I was like,
pause.
so.
I will
Oh,
say
man.
I had some
Oh
questions
man, I
about
said
this.
so many. I was complaining about you all week, like just all
I got
3
a lot
days.
of.
It
I
was
got
just like
some texts
one
about that too.
nonstop.
I will tell you one thing. It was not a 1%. It was not a 1% vacation. We rode the state ferry in Alaska, not an official cruise ship. our group was this close to getting kicked out of the bar and potentially the boat at the end of the one night on it, but we survived. So, and now we're back. We'll be in San
Isn't
Diego
that kind
this
of a
weekend.
1%er type thing to do, though? To just be so obnoxious?
Well,
Because
maybe but that
you're
might just
flaunting
be a
your
different
1%
kind of-
status.
Might just be a different kind of 1%.
Could be.
Oh, all right.
All right.
You travel safe. We'll get
Yeah.
down to San Diego, and we will talk to you all at the end of this coming series against the Padres. Thank you. Subscribe, California Post Sports at YouTube. Like, hype. Find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever else you get your podcasts. Because look at all the effort Dylan's putting in to be coming to you well past midnight in Minnesota.